Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I'm Mohana Basu, Assistant Editor at ThePrint. I cover science and research. And we have a very exciting set of guests here today with us. We are here to talk about one of the most exciting periods of Indian science history. That is the India's nuclear program and the quest for technological self-reliance. With me, we have Dr. Chidambaram. Of course, he is one of India's most distinguished experimental physicists, and he played a leading role in the design and execution of the peaceful nuclear explosions that happened in Pokhran in 1974, and then he also led the nuclear device explosions in 1998 in Pokhran. And of course, everyone in India is aware of those moments. And we also have with us Suresh Gangota, who has written this memoir that is called India Rising, Memoir of a Scientist. Um, this this book does a very intimate detail into what that period was like for the scientists here. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you, Dr. Chidambaram, Gangotra. Just a small correction. Actually, the book is written by Sir. I have only helped him.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. So that's in fact, that is the question I was going to come to first. That how was it written? Was it like a set of interviews? How long did it take to write down everything? Because it is very detailed. It's full of information.
No, over a period of time, I have given so many lectures on various topics which are related here, including achievements in Indian science and technology. I talked about national security. So we have put it all together. They were a little scattered. We have put all that, put the material together. Maybe over 6 months to a year it took to write the final version.
Right. So, it brings out a lot of very interesting details from your college time as well. In fact, I think a lot of students would be very, interested to read that anecdote about your lab viva with the heat calorific of the sulfur, where you basically said that the lab, the person who came to, the examiner who came to ask you the question, and you were doing the experiment in a certain way, and that was the correct one. So I think a lot of people will sort of identify with that.
Sulfuric acid in water and water in sulfuric acid. Eh? You have written about adding sulfuric acid to water, that incident.
No, that was my exam question and the practical exam question when it was a physics honors exam. So the question that was asked for me was heat of dilution of sulfuric acid. I knew at that time that if you put water on it will blow up in your face because so much heat is generated that when if you add water to sulfuric acid. So I was adding sulfuric acid to water. Finally, you will get the same result, the same the heat generated there. You look at the calorific value and all that. But one of the examiners was a little unhappy with that because we had asked him the question, heat of dilution of sulfuric acid, but he has done the heat of sulfurization of water. But fortunately, the other examiner knew if he had done the way you are suggesting, the whole thing would have blown up in his face. So he left it.
So I think it tells you a lot about India's examination systems and all that. That is where I think a lot of students will sort of like to know that this happens a lot. To me, what was interesting was that at the time when you were working on these on the nuclear program, the beginning of the nuclear program, there wasn't a lot of supercomputers. The access to computers was also limited. But all of these things had to be done. There were a lot of calculations that people today working today can't even think of without a computer. So what was that like?
No, we had access to a computer. Of course, its power was nowhere near what we get today, and we had to use a lot of more of analytic methods. Fortunately, Bark had some computers which you can use for this purpose. But a lot of approximations you can do if you use good physical theory. So you get an idea and use the computer only for the refinement part of it, so that you get exact, for example, predicting the yield of the device.
Right.
We got it very precisely over there. We had, because what happens when you do a test underground, you detonate a device underground and the thing explodes. A lot of heat is produced and a lot of pressure is also generated. So now what happens is, a lot of rock around the shot point vaporizes. And now we have a cavity of hot radioactive gases at very high pressure. And then the shock begins to propagate in all directions. And when a shock propagates, unlike static pressures, not only does it compress the material, but it also produces heat. So now it is not hot enough to vaporize the material, but to start with, it will melt the material. So now afterwards, it becomes weak enough because a divergent shock wave, then it can only crack the rock. And all that molten rock falls to the bottom of the cavity. And the good thing is, it captures most of the radioactivity there and it becomes vitreous rock. And in fact, afterwards we dig into it, pick up this vitreous rock, and that's how we determine the yield of the device. And then it comes and hits the ground, gets reflected. What goes as a compressive wave comes back as a rarefaction wave, and the mound lifts, as you might have seen in the shock wave experiment. And if you are deep enough, it falls down, no radioactivity. So you can do very deep, there will be no surface effect at all. But we had optimized the depth, that at that depth, the Earth will go up and come down, form a crater, but no radioactivity release will tear. So what happens?
Right. Right. In fact, like throughout your book, you stress a lot about how it is important to understand your basic sciences and research in basic sciences. And I mean, from what you just told me, it's very clear that you cannot have achieved something like this if you were very focused in whatever was your area of research. When we are starting out the book, you're talking about studying hydrogen bonds. And here we are. In fact, one example that you highlight is about the geology as well, like how the specifications for how deep underground the tests must be carried out is based on research from the US, and there the rock is mostly basalt. And then you come to Pokhran, where it's sandstone and shale. And these kind of insights, to have these kind of insights in this community of scientists who are working in their own specialization. Do you think you still see that kind of,
So you see, the thing is, we have an atomic minerals division with a lot of geologists. We had requested them to drill a hole here, and it's a very sedimentary, different kind of rocks as you go down. They had given us an exact inventory of all the rocks you meet as you go down. And we know the properties of this rock. So when we computer simulated what will happen to the rock when we detonate it at various yields, you could predict what is going to happen. And we made sure you went deep enough so that no radioactivity expands. You could have gone deeper, but then you are wasting effort. So we kind of optimized the depth. So then it worked exactly according to, and we had to wait for a time. See, however careful you are, due to some weakness in the rock, some radioactivity might leak. So the wind has to be in the right direction, so that in the desert it flows in a direction, but of course no radioactivity leak. So that problem did not arise.
Right, and it's something that you also talked about was how your team had to actually, interact with the villagers there to understand what spot you can drill in without, hitting water where there was no water.
Yeah.
So community engagement was also,
No,
an
that's
important.
our atomic minerals division people. Best thing is to ask when you go there to ask the villagers.
Right.
The villagers know which place you dig, there will be no water. Because all the places where you dig water, they would have taken the water. Because in the desert area, water is a very, very precious commodity. So the
Right.
first thing we did was to ask the villagers. And they more or less pointed out the area where it is unlikely to be any water. That was the
So,
starting point.
right. So, personally, how was that at that time? How was that experience? Have you were working on something that was a big secret, like it was you had to be very, very secure, very, very secretive. Did you, for example, did your wife know what you were working on?
Nobody knew. No, really, the Pokhran range is a military range. Security was
Right,
assured.
right, right.
But they used to test their bombs and all that. Normal, normal kinds
Mhm,
of airdrops and all that in that area. So security was assured. Security in that area. But the people are also very nice. So
mhm.
never let. In fact, as a joke, I must tell you, we went to a village called Ketolai because just before we tested the device, we wanted to make sure if in case they are having some weak structures, the structure should not collapse and they should get hurt.
Right.
So we went and told the major in the army went and told them, we are going to test something here and you be careful, nothing. And the villagers tell us, we know we are going to test a nuclear device. We are very happy. You please go ahead and test it. We won't mind it. So somehow they sensed, and nothing leaked out, though we are right there on the border with our neighboring country.
Yeah.
Nothing leaked out because that shows they
Yes.
knew it and they just kept.
That is very interesting. And
Uh,
how did your family react once the news got out?
yeah, sorry.
Once the news got out, once it was, once everyone got to know, how did your family react then?
Then only they understood what. Of course, we all gave excuses to go there without telling you were going because we rerouted it via Delhi and all that. So they knew we are in Delhi. They thought probably we were in Delhi and neighborhood. The entire
Right.
team of people who were there was various people of various specializations. We need
Mhm.
electrical engineers because the control room is several kilometers away from the point of detonation. Because the shock wave will come and destroy may affect the structures. We lay the cable, we close the thing. So everything went perfectly because there are so many experts in Bach, so there's no problem at all.
Right. So, one thing that really strikes whenever we talk about, that period of history in India and the scientific developments that were taking place, at that time, the scientific community was small and very close knit. Every time there is some issue, some problem, some research problem, there is a friend somewhere else in some other, institute working on that. And all these collaborations happen through these personal networks of sorts, personal and professional. You were professional friends, you were colleagues, you know what everyone is working on. Do you think right now at this point, there's a lot more red tapeism, so those kind of collaborations, that kind of work
No,
is
it's
it still?
going on. It's going on. You see, actually, collaboration is not between institutions. Collaboration is between individual scientists. People who are working in proximate areas know each other. They meet in meetings and all that, and they collaborate. Somebody has a problem, somebody has the equipment. That goes on. Come and use that equipment. And there are also, in fact, we also created this structure called STEM. Large facilities cannot be owned by every institution. And
Right.
also, only large institutions can own them because the maintenance problem is there. Smaller institutions don't have the facility to maintain these instruments. So whenever we give instruments either funded by our PSA's office or by DST and all that, there is a clause there that major equipment must be made available to anybody who is interested. Anybody who is interested in that in taken care of by, and it goes on. Because even for your big projects, you need major equipment, but you don't use it 100% of the time. Nobody uses it. It's one of several 10% of the time. And the remaining time, that is the way it goes on in India now. Major facilities are made available to others. We also encourage it when I was started doing it when I was the principal scientific.
Right. And you also talk about, identifying talent at a young stage, from these mathematics Olympiads. And these people don't really then make it to science research fields. And as a principal scientific advisor, you did start identification of giftedness in children with special focus on science and mathematics. Can you tell us a little about that? What happened to that project, and what was your experience there?
No, you see, even before that, mathematics Olympiad is a much higher. I'm saying even at the age of 3 to 5 years, you must be able to see giftedness in children. See, there are some young kids, boys and girls, who are interested in some specific area. What I was trying to say was it is the responsibility of the teacher to identify the talent at a very young age and make sure it gets directed. And everybody, in my opinion, not only in science, must work in an area for which you have talent and you have interest. Very often the parents will go and join IIT and go and write the IAS exam. But that should not happen. You should leave them. My father left me to
Yeah, in fact, I mean, it's very, if anyone reads if they go through this book, they will understand that, just pushing, bright kids towards engineering is not the be all and end all of research.
No,
We need all kinds of fields.
engineering is important, but you must have a talent for that.
Yeah.
And go, and engineering also has got so many disciplines. But then if you are interested in mathematics, no point in asking him to become an electrical engineer. Let him be a mathematician. This is what the parents and the teachers must ensure. And I know sometimes young people who are forced to join the IIT go abroad and go over to the area they were interested in. Of course, the experience they had might help them in some way. That's a secondary thing. The primarily, when we were promoting this gifted children idea, the whole idea was every child must be allowed to work and develop a career in an area for which he or she has talent.
Right.
And the parents and the teachers must help the child to go in that direction. Of course,
And
must also.
all of it comes, like they say, all roads lead to Rome. I mean, all of it does come together when you're working on a project like this.
Yeah.
Even today, the mega science projects, they all require different fields of specialization. Dr. Gangotra, since you're here, I would just like to, ask you one question. This is the second book that you sort of have, you've also worked with Anil Kapoor on, talking about this era, and nuclear science, and you yourself are part of the nuclear program. So, what has your experience been talking to these two stalwarts, and especially interacting with him, and how it was difficult dealing out information and trying to direct him in a sense that most viewers and readers can sort of
You
connect.
asked a question for which he has to give a diplomatic answer. Yes.
No, well, I will, let me tell you one thing, when we started this thing, I have never worked with Dr. Chidambaram, as I have written in the book, I'm 62 and you are now 86, right? So you can imagine the difference between, though we work for the same department. But I must tell you one thing, that writing for both the books, one thing very important, and I will connect it to a slightly different thing, You must have seen that movie Parmanu, I think, right? Then you must have seen this recent Rocket Boys series. See, when I saw them or when I speak to him about it, there is so much of misinformation or distortion of facts, So I would say, as a engineer from the organization, we feel that it is also our responsibility, like both these books, put in perspective what exactly happens, not that, see, all details cannot be given. That is obvious, it's a very sensitive subject. But at the same time, how much of an effort, how much of a, I would say, see, no, not every country is able to do it. You should realize that thing, So the input to that program, and I must tell you, Dr. Chidambaram is so humble. When I ask him, he doesn't even realize that he has done so much for the nation, And of course, believe me, when we started, I was also not sure, but today he called me. He said, okay, come. See, it's more like a friend. He says, you also sit with me, and I can discuss anything and everything with him. It has been a wonderful journey. And I truly believe, it is my privilege to get to know Dr. Chidambaram like I got to know Dr. Kakodkar also, And I'm a very ordinary writer, not that I write something very. In fact, this book is mainly written by him. I have only helped him. So I must say it is my opportunity, it is their greatness, both Dr. Chidambaram and Dr. Kakodkar, and nothing diplomatic about it. I can be very honest.
Basu, don't get carried away by his humility. Okay. Now you go ahead.
But I must put the last word.
Okay, my
I must
next
put the,
question, and yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I must say the last word, it has been my privilege in both the cases, honestly, to be associated. I would say today, these are the two tallest pillars of our department. And see, one very important thing, both of them have been in 74, which was a turning moment for India, and 98, again, a turning moment, I, I was just discussing with him, I think he will agree with me. We do not have a third person of that nature or stature who has worked on the program on both the occasions. Am I right, sir?
Right.
So their story needs to be known,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is very enlightening to, read it with that much detail. I mean, it is different. Movies have a different sort of audience and they cater to some, a very different kind of group. But reading the kind of, the kind of scientific problems that they were faced and how those were solved was actually quite interesting. But, I have one complaint. I'm being non-diplomatic here. One complaint, and that is that every time I read or whenever we talk about that period in our Indian history, we do not see there is no visibility of women there. Was it that there were no scientists at all? There was not a single woman scientist in the since from 74 to 98, or is this like an oversight? What is it? I'm very curious.
No, we see, women scientists are not discriminated against in BARC. See, actually, it is changing a little bit. Over the years, young women, have not gone into physical sciences that much. They have gone into biological sciences more than, we had secretaries of the Department of Biotechnology who have been, in fact, Swati Basu actually worked with me in the same secretary grade when I was the principal scientific advisor. Because now things out, there are people who are good people. Just now, maybe you also mentioned, even if I remember right, the Chandrayaan mission is led by a woman.
Right.
And that is physics and engineering. There are a lot of physics and engineering that is involved there. Things are changing. But over the years, And also, of course, I have written, there is chapter on
Yes, yes.
women
But
in science.
honestly, that is where I feel like every time we talk about science, women sort of become like a subcategory of scientists rather than like contributions being, highlighted when we talk about the science per se. So, at this point at Bach, maybe, Dr. Gangotri would also be able to enlighten me. What are the kind of initiatives like has the scene changed a lot? Is there more initiative to sort of support and give that extra push to women who, often there are, like you have addressed the fact that, there are career issues, there are societal pressures on a woman that makes it very
Once
difficult.
I
So,
gave a lecture in SNDT Women's University. It goes like this.
mhm,
Man's career goes like that.
mhm,
Woman's career, maybe the slope is higher until they get married. And very often, the husband is usually older than the wife
right,
in most cases. So professionally, even by that very fact, earns more than the wife if she is working. And the woman moves to the place where the husband is. Now, whether it's a man or a woman, if you shift your working place, you take a career fall. You will, unless you are lucky, you will never get the same position.
mhm,
Then you get the first child. The man has no problem, he keeps on going. There is a fall. And without a glass ceiling or all those prejudices, the women's career has there. But there are famous women. I mentioned it here, Nobel laureate,
yes, yes. Dr. Tessie Thomas.
Dorothy Hodgkin, Julio Curie, Madame Curie, and all that, overcome all this. There are women who overcome, but they have some handicaps. When you are fighting at the top level, a small difference can make a difference in your career. You may be a 2 years senior, 3 years, you lose someone. So this is
Right.
what happens. But in spite of that, Secretary Biotechnology, there have been women who have done
Mhm.
very well. But directors of groups in BARC, there have been women.
Right.
So far, if I remember right, Director BARC, there has been no woman so far. BARC director or chairman AEC, so far there has been no woman. Group directors, there have been women.
Mhm.
Directors of groups. Even.
All right. I mean, like, I hope things change for the better. They are changing for the better, and we hope to see more such spaces. And I think we're running out of
But
time. I do have
as
one
somebody
more.
said,
Sorry.
life is not just career.
Yes,
Life is a complex combination.
absolutely.
And I put here somewhere, I don't know if I put here the Blondie joke. Have you read my
Yes,
Blondie
yes,
joke?
yes, yes.
So, totality of happiness comes from all of these put together.
Mhm.
Career is not uh,
Right.
the only thing which one has to look at. But I do hope as time goes on, more and more women will, as we are.
Right. I will, since we are running out of time, I'll just quickly take a second to sort of. So, this particular page where there's a cartoon by
Cartoon
our,
of Lakshman, yes.
and that's very interesting to, like, to be immortalized in this format. I mean,
No, what happened? I was a member of the executive committee of the International Union of Crystallography. See, that is my subject, crystallography.
yes.
And as you know, International Council of Science has different unions for different subjects. I was in fact in the executive committee. Meeting of the executive committee was going to take place in Washington. And they denied me the visa. If I had complained to the International Union, you can't prevent, in the old days, because of apartheid, we are not giving to Formosa and Israel and all that. So no international meetings could be held here. So some of my foreign friends are telling you complain against the Americans. that there was so no international meeting. I said, why do I do that? No? Finally, they were willing to give the visa for that. But that's okay. But those things have changed now. Now,
Yeah.
no problem about traveling. That was some minor.
All right. So, I
At
mean, I
that
think
time, at that time is when R.K. Lakshman drew this cartoon. Since the
yeah.
scientist was denied the visa and the council is looking out, he's only a racketeer. You can give him the visa. He's not a scientist. So that was the background for R.K. Lakshman is brilliant, of course, no question.
Right. And, I mean, on that note, I think what we were able to capture in this discussion is just scratching the surface of the different experiences, the different roles that Dr. Chidambaram has played in, in India's science and research arena. So I would urge once again all our viewers to go and pick up a copy of this book because it's going to give you a lot more insight into what went on during those historic years that we continue to talk about, that we continue to go back to. We try to immortalize it through, books and popular films and TV series. But this book will give you a good intimate view into what was going on at that time, and also, of course, the various other roles that Dr. Chidambaram played. Thank you, Dr. Tangotra and Dr. Chidambaram for
See, let
joining us.
me say one sentence. Don't
Yes,
read only about Pokhran in this book. I
yes,
want India to become a knowledge economy, not
absolutely.
just a developed country. Knowledge economy, a country with the ability to generate new knowledge, capability to appropriate knowledge generated anywhere in the world. And that is where India is going. And it will have many kinds of successes on this way, whether it's atomic energy or space or CSIR or universities. Everywhere good things are happening. And as Swami Vivekananda once said, the old theology was you are an atheist if you didn't believe in God. The new theology is you are an atheist if you don't believe in yourself. 100 years back, the great man said. And India is now developing that self-belief. Added to it optimism and passion. There's nothing India cannot achieve.
Absolutely. Those are, I mean, words to live by. And that is why I said that, just talking about Pokhran and nuclear program is just scratching the surface of what this book actually is about. Do go and pick up your copies and, tell us in the comments below what you thought about the book itself. And once again, thanks to our viewers also for joining us. Once again, I'm Mohana Basu, assistant editor at ThePrint. Do follow us on social media platforms for the latest updates on news, analysis, politics, science, and sport.
Thank you, Mrs. Basu. Ms. Basu. And enjoyed talking with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a pleasure.